The election is expected to hold in 26 states, 73 local government areas, and 7,681 polling units. And in these areas, 4,228,502 registered voters, with 3,970,039 PVCs collected and 258,468 uncollected PVCs in this area. So I told you there are two types of elections happening tomorrow, rerun and by-elections. For the by-elections, elections will be holding in 24 local government and 4,294 polling units. There are 2,370,590 registered voters in those areas. And the court-ordered rerun elections will be happening in 49 local government areas with 3,389 polling units. Let's get a sense of what is going on and what we should be expecting tomorrow. I'm being joined by an election observer, an election expert actually, a lawyer and the executive director of Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo. He joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Itodo, for joining us.
Thanks, Sherwin. Good evening.
We're back into another round of elections. This time around,
on the day Nigeria is playing Angola.
It's good news, though.
It's good news. I will pray it stays this way.
Absolutely. And I hope that it's going to be good news tomorrow, though. What do you feel, first and foremost, because of some of your disappointment, and Yaga Africa and some of your colleagues have voiced out your disappointment in the 2023 general elections, either in the manner in which politicians behaved or in the manner in which INEC conducted itself. But generally, what are your feelings? What's your feeling like towards tomorrow? Is the eve of the elections?
Well, I think in the states where these elections are being conducted, in some cases they are quite competitive, and then you see there's enthusiasm on the part of people. But quite frankly, we don't see, that frenzy and that deep interest in this election. I think there are some Nigerians who don't even who are unaware that there will be elections tomorrow. I think it was when the police issued, announced that there will be restriction of movement in some of those locations, that a lot of people started asking questions whether elections is going to hold. But it tells you something about our elections, that once elections are not conducted within, the parameters of a general election, there is disinterest on the part of people, especially against the background where in the fallout of the last election and the off-cycle election, the level of trust in the electoral process have continued to do what? To decline because of several reasons, either the attitude of politicians or the way and manner INEC managed the election. So people are going into this election tomorrow. We at Yaga Africa have projected low turnout because of the disinterest in this election, sadly so. But the voters in those constituencies need to show up because, one, if in your state or in your constituency you are voting in a rerun election, the court ordered the rerun election because in the first election conducted by INEC, there were some challenges, right? Or the court issued orders against the background of the inability of political parties to comply with the rules. So you have another opportunity to go out tomorrow to vote for a candidate and a party of your choice, and don't, relegate or abandon that responsibility that you have. But for those who are in states where there are by-elections, so for instance, if you look at states like Yobe and Ebonyi that have senatorial elections. Sharon, senatorial elections are like governorship elections.
Absolutely.
And so they are also very important elections that people should show up to cast their vote, expecting that their votes will count. Now, there are several issues for this election. We are coming against the background of the off-cycle elections, where we saw an absolute disregard for the rule of law, absolute disregard for the Electoral Act and INEC guidelines, where politicians went on rampage, compromised election officials, and pre-filled completed result sheets before accreditation and voting commenced in some of those, especially in a state like Kogi State. We cannot abandon or forget and relegate that particular incident, because politicians are known to always adopt bad precedent. And so going into tomorrow's elections, the voters should be vigilant that once these sensitive materials that INEC has deployed to the constituencies are brought to your polling unit, insist that the presiding officer should display the ballot papers and the result sheet and confirm that the result sheets have not been pre-filled. Also confirm that the BVAS records 0 before the commencement of accreditation and voting. But more importantly, is that the voters should also insist on accreditation with the BVAS. Because as you can see from the judgments of the Supreme Court, that the BVAS has come to stay, that electronic accreditation has come to stay, and the Supreme Court reinforced the position of the Electoral Act. So you have a right to insist that you must be accredited using the BVAS and do not allow anybody to discourage you from getting accredited in tomorrow's elections.
Beyond that is also the fact, one of the things that you have raised, these steps are very key and very important. And I imagine my producer to put up a video of what a polling unit looks like. Perhaps we can talk through some of these scenarios which play out in the polling unit. So in a voting process, for example, and you have said it, in your accreditation process, ensure that the right things are being done. When you cast your ballot, don't go away until the ballots are being counted. And when that happens, ensure that they enter validly the number of the vote and they empty it, and they also show you that the packets of the ballot are well sealed so that it's not been tampered with before the elections. And we saw those who did that in the general elections who said, no, this has been tampered with. You have to show us. And usually, if there are 1,000 polling papers, it will be written there. And people must ensure those things. The other part which you've raised is a point that people need to ensure that polling officers enter and paste the result on the wall. And it must be what has been announced. They take pictures of it and keep it for themselves. And these are some of the jobs that the agents also need to do. But Samson, let me take you to something quite interesting, and it's about the projection of Yaga Africa. I know you probably will set out your PVT system to monitor the elections tomorrow, as you always do. But I fear what happened in the senatorial election, where over 1 million, almost 1.5 million voters are registered in that polling unit. Guess what happened? In that Lagos senatorial election, only 9% voters came out. Out of over almost 1.5 million, about 104,000 voted in that election in 2020. And there are those who are afraid that there might be a replay of this. Now, in Lagos, the police has come out to say there won't be restrictions in the entire state. It's only within the area. What can we do? Is it late in the day to start getting people mobilized and get to the need of them going out tomorrow to vote?
Well, I don't think it's late in the day. But, Shenwo, let's break this down and why this election is important. The Constitution is clear on the criteria and the benchmark for declaring a winner. What do I mean? To emerge as a winner in tomorrow's elections, because all the elections are legislative elections, all you need is simple majority. What it means is one vote can make a difference.
Can make a senator.
Yeah, can make a senator. And even if 5%, in fact, let me put it this way, if only 5 people show up tomorrow to cast their votes, the candidate that gets 4 out of 5 of those votes will make it to the National Assembly.
You're going too far, Samson. If only the candidate comes out to vote for himself tomorrow, it becomes valid, isn't it?
And this is very dangerous. It's dangerous on 2 fronts, because it now makes the elections very, very sensitive and competitive. This is why people need to pay close attention. Unlike executive elections, where there's a threshold for majority of votes and then a certain threshold for securing votes in a number of local governments or states, in this particular case, simple majority is the way to determine who wins the election. This is why people need to be very, very sensitive critical and vigilant on tomorrow's election, because any simple action or inaction can actually tilt the outcome in favor of any candidate. And this is why it's important for people to show up. You know, it's just unfortunate that you have people sitting in the National Assembly, in State House of Assembly, and they only won election with just 7,000 votes. In fact,
it happened
if you recall, in
3,000 votes at
3,000
House of Reps members.
Even in Abia, it was just how many? It was less than 10%. Well, if a governor sits today in a government house in Anambra with only 10% turnout in the elections, voters, what do you expect? And it doesn't say well about political legitimacy. It doesn't say well about electoral process. This is why Nigerians and voters in those locations, those constituencies, should come out and cast their vote. INEC has demonstrated preparedness for this election. That's not.
Are you convinced?
In terms of INEC preparations for tomorrow's elections, we're convinced that INEC is prepared. But it's not just about preparation. But what we have seen is the people who are on the field, and what Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo has taught us, which reinforced, you know, what we've always said, was that politicians are still in the business of compromising election officials few days before the elections, just in a bid to subvert the process. Only a compromised election official would have completed result sheets even before accreditation and voting took place. But it was there in public domain, where NYC, one of the NYC or ad hoc officials was caught with how much? With about 1.something million naira. And the big questions people are asking, and Nigerians need to know, what has happened to those people who were found wanting? Those INEC officials in Kogi who pre-filled result sheet, what has happened to them? Nigerians want to know if INEC has held these people to account to inspire confidence. Because if this will cause tomorrow and no consequential action is taken, there's no way you're going to inspire confidence on the parts of Nigerians.
I mean, when you say that I'm not a skeptic, but, well, I may have my skepticism about INEC, because when INEC is playing dumb in some areas, I'm always worried. When INEC is refusing to speak in some areas, how can you have elections and INEC is not willing to speak about controversies and lack of clarity in areas? When you say INEC, I want to be disappointed tomorrow that INEC will be on top of the game. But when INEC begins to show this kind of behavior that I've seen them show in the last few days, when they are tongue-tied about an election happening tomorrow, I have my fears. But let me allow Alaji Abaji Sani, who has since joined us from I used to see the chair of HIPAC. He's a former chair.
No, I'm still the chairman.
Yes, the chair. Yes. The national chairman of Interparty Advisory Council. Thank you so much indeed. Of course, campaigns are over. But from the point of view of political parties, do you have confidence? Because learning from what happened in 2023 general elections, do you think INEC is really ready?
Well, Sean, I think Nigeria will have come of age when you talk about conducting elections, especially you mentioned 2023. And I think on the part of INEC, they have internalized the responsibility, that is the mandate given to them to ensure that we have free, fair, credible elections. In terms of preparedness, and in terms of even readiness, because I watched the clip on Plateau, you know, and the National Commissioner, that is Mohamed Aruna, who was sent to Plateau to supervise the elections, explained, you know, to the people that the reasons why, one of the reasons why, you know, one of the parties was not in the ballot is because there was a court of appeal, a judgment that removed, you know, that disqualified the candidate. And when the candidate is disqualified, and then there's going to be a rerun, and the precedence we have is that that disqualified candidate is not allowed to participate in that election. You know, there have been cases like that. So if you are talking about these rerun elections and by-elections, I think INEC has demonstrated the fact that they are ready. And I
thought they did that too during before the elections of 2023. We thought they were ready.
Yes, but people are always, you know, quick to blame the politicians. But the fact of the matter is that, you see, this is a social process. It takes time, you know, to get it right. it's not mechanical. It's not something that you can just change overnight. And I think, I want you to understand, see, what I have seen from the Supreme Court judgment, I believe that there is some deliberate attempt to ensure that Nigerians begin to have confidence in the votes that were cast during elections. I'm talking about the judgments on the governorship elections and things like that. So I think I want to give it to President Tinubu, because they must be working behind the scenes to ensure that people's votes are not, in any way disregarded. That's why most of the judgment that were given by Supreme Court were in affirmation of what INEC has declared as the result of that election. And I think it's a way of building confidence in the system. I'm not saying that things went, completely right. So that will give Nigerians confidence in tomorrow, that is the February 3rd, which is tomorrow, tomorrow's election, to come out, because people will now know that votes count. It did count, because if votes did not count, most of the governors that we have today may not be on their seats, perhaps. So I think INEC has demonstrated that they are ready, and I want to assure Nigerians that we are going to see a different, results, as far as performance is concerned, and building confidence of Nigerians in the system. Because
what do you see, Alhaji Sani? Tomorrow, police at the headquarters are talking about the deployment, how they will ensure they will forestall or stop any kind of criminal or violent activities towards the election. But there are those who are afraid that do not lock down a state because of one polling unit election or few polling units in the entire 26 or so states. There are just about 7,681. Only 73 local government areas will be having election spread across. In fact, in one state there is only one polling unit that will be having election. So, what do you make of the security architecture? Because we also know that during elections in Nigeria are so technical such that the movement here and there could cause some kind of manipulation of the process. They said those who are having VIP protections will have to be stopped if they're going to vote. But when the movement are fluid, how do you ensure this kind of to forestall or curtail this kind of situation?
No, I will expect maximum security in states like Plateau, and other flashpoints like that, because we'll be having challenges, on the Plateau. And I think whatever the security outfit architecture is going to deployed to that place to secure the voters, I don't think it will be too much to do.
Well, there are three states, that are major. Plateau has 6 local government areas. So 6 local government area is a lot.
Yes.
In Yobe East, the central election, there are 7 LGAs there, and 992 polling units. In Ebonyi South, there are 5 local government areas, 870 PUs. In Plateau North, it is 2,266 PUs or 6 local government areas. So these are the ones that there will be that has more cluster of voters.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm saying that it will not make sense like Niger State. You can't go and lock down Niger State because it's only one local government or something like that. That elections would be there will be a by-election. So, but there are states that, like Seun, even if there's no elections, we need security outfit in security to be deployed to those areas. And I like to really commend the efforts of the governor of Plateau State, because he has demonstrated statesmanship by not allowing the issue of his party not being on the ballot to degenerate into some crisis, because immediately the announcement was made, it became tensed. And I know he got to work. I'm sure he talked to his people that all is not lost. So that's what the kind of thing we expect from the governors, that you don't think that everything begins and stops by winning. You must allow some space, and whatever happens, let peace, let people's lives and property be protected. So, and that's what the Plateau State governor has demonstrated. So I really commend his efforts, and I think we're going to have peace, in that election, and I expect that election to go in a very smooth, manner.
If you have any fear as to the conduct of the election tomorrow that you think INEC and security agencies need to look out for, what would that be?
Well, the fear will be of the external, factors, because we have had banditry, we've had issues of insurgency and things like those. Ones are not about elections, but they could, if care is not taken, they could disrupt, elections. That's why I'm saying in areas where we are having so many attacks, whatever the security outfits should do, they should do it, and even extra, because these people are there to cause, havoc and then create unnecessary tension, So those are the external, attacks that I think one would want the security people to be very alert, to be alert, as to ensure that it does not disrupt the political.
Something, you're a lawyer, so give us an understanding. The court-ordered rerun elections. Those who will say, these are things that we could have forestalled if things were done rightly. And this also goes into how political parties and politicians conduct themselves. Because if you look at the heart of the meat of the matter, in those cases where elections are court had ordered these rerun elections, these are things that could have been averted rather than allow Nigeria to spend money getting people back. And those who have gotten appointments, I'm not sure they were really, really serious about getting to that office. Now they have to, Nigeria needs to get people back, print ballot papers, conduct elections, logistics, operational issues, and all what have you. Going forward, how do we avert these repeated spending money on elections?
Well, so for by-elections, where you have resignation, where you have death, political parties, should be allowed to nominate
and replace
naturally. You don't have to go back. And there was a bill that was sponsored in the National Assembly, but I know it was rejected. In fact, just last year, it was rejected at the Senate because the whole philosophy that underpins our electoral jurisprudence with respect to candidacy is that votes in an election belong to a political party because a party sponsors candidate. And it's a rational argument to make. Because
versus INEC.
Exactly. If the votes belong to a political party, then the party should, through its own democratic internal process, nominate one person that goes in to replace, to that vacant seat. But to go back to conduct elections, it costs the country a lot of money because most of the elections, like the senatorial elections, it costs a lot of money. And I'll tell you, it costs as high as over 300 to 400 million naira just to conduct a senatorial election, if not more, given the inflation as at today. But on the other hand, and there are two institutions that we need to actually put this at their doorstep. If you look at the judgments, like you said, first is either a function of non-compliance on the part of those who manage the elections at the field level, or as a result of inconsistent application of the guidelines and the rules. And in this case, INEC is to be held to account. This is why issues around training, issues around internal oversight, and then sanctioning bad behavior on the part of electoral officials is critical. We cannot have a situation where election officials are deliberately sabotaging the process, and there is no sanction for it. Because if you check, some of those are just careless mistakes that were made by officials in the field. The second is on the part of the political actors. And I think that politicians also need to change their attitude towards elections. This whole zero-sum attitude towards politics, this do-or-die approach towards politics is what accounts for some of these challenges that we have within our electoral process. And that we need to come to a point where when politicians are campaigning and canvassing, they should also demonstrate fidelity to democratic values, that you do not have to subvert the process just because you want to serve people. You can't force yourself on people. If you've been rejected by people, respect the wishes of the people. But also internally within political parties, how candidates are nominated is also critical, because the whole candidate nomination process is what gives birth to these kinds of remedial actions that have economic consequences for the country, social and political consequences for the country. Because how do you explain a situation where a primaries are conducted delegates are substituted midnight, the parties who are involved and candidates who are involved are not carried along, or you have a situation where certain aspirants are not allowed to buy party nomination forms, or cases where parties intentionally nominate candidates who do not meet the qualifications of the law, or even when a primaries have been conducted in line with the provisions of the law, or you see unlawful and illegal substitution of candidates. Yes, the Supreme Court have said that issues around candidate nomination are internal affairs of political parties. Yeah. But you can only uphold that in a context where you have political parties that have respect for their own rules. But in a case where you have parties who don't have respect for their own rules, then the candidate selection process would always be challenged. This is why we continually remain a litigious society. Look at the petitions. If you look at the pre-election matters versus the election petitions, you can see the number of cases that went to court just challenging candidate nomination because of the attitude of our political class towards managing their candidate nomination process.
Yeah, let's anchor on this note. And Alhaji Abagisani, if there is one major lesson that Nigerians learned from the 2023 elections and going into this election, what we need to all look at, because something I told Nigerians to open and shine their eyes. What would that be?
You also told them.
Yes, I also did, that Nigerians should shine their eyes and look beyond the surface.
Yeah, well,
and it's because of you politicians.
Well, not so much so. I think if there's anything really that Nigerians should give attention to, more than any other thing, is the entire system itself. What am I saying? The manner by which the INEC officials are appointed, it's very, very, it's germane to us getting free, fair, and credible elections. Recently, some recs were appointed who Nigerians came out to say that these people are members of political parties. Aside from that, we look at the issues of these primordial things, sentiments, which we have. Nigerians should try to see how we divorce, politics from those primordial sentiments, because if primordial sentiments are the things that would dictate, the actors, the flag bearers, who represent political parties, then you already have an internal conflict, in the system itself. So going forward, we must, rise above these sentiments and be able to select people to a very large extent based on their track records that this person can deliver, and should be given the votes.
Alhaji Abagisani, we're looking forward to your optimism. I will buy it tonight. At least I will hope that INEC will do well and keep to their work. But there's something sinister that I feel. But I just hope that all is well, because when INEC is not talking, it could be a problem. But thank you so much, Alhaji Abagisani, Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, and the National Chairman of the ADP. Mr. Samson Itodo, who is a lawyer, an election expert, and the Executive Director of Yiaga Africa. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight.
Always a delight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.